Welcome back to the Bass Capital Radio podcast. As always, I'm your host, Lara Wallace, and today I'm here with Miss Mary Lawson Brown, and I am thrilled to have you with me. I am very much into covering history. I think we have so much history here in Putnam County, whether in Palaca, Crescent City, and Alaka, and we've seen so much as a community. From being memorialized in the book Bartram's Frolic down the St. John's, being able to envision what it was like him riding past the Indians out on the side of the riverfront. But you have seen quite a bit of history here. Your family's been here since, you said, 1913?
Yes.
And I could not be more excited to hear it from your perspective. So I'd love to start the conversation always by asking how you got here, and obviously through your family. So they came in 1913. How many generations ago was that?
Four.
Four generations? And
Yes. They came because they wanted to start businesses. My grandmother had lived in Orlando and worked and lived in as a nurse.
okay.
And my dad had grown up there till he was 12, and then they moved here.
Mhm.
And my grandfather, E.W. Lawson, they had come and they brought her sister, and she kind of took care of my dad
Mhm.
because my grandmother was kind of busy.
What was your grandmother up to?
Well, grandmother, when they got here, my grandfather wanted to start a business, and he talked to Carl Davis, who had a funeral home, the only funeral home here. It was sold to Johnson,
Mhm.
Edgar Johnson, and then sold to the Overturfs.
Okay.
And that's how, and they said, you don't have any black funeral homes. If you want to start a business, why don't you try it? And my grandfather said, okay. And he went out and he learned from an itinerant person. And I don't remember the name of them, but they traveled around teaching people how to take care of. And people don't realize, we think of funerals and what you do, but funeral homes do a big service because we take care of health. We get rid of germs that could spread from one person to another.
Very
And
true.
people never think about, if they didn't have us around, a lot of the stuff that we had would have taken large numbers of people away. Embalming fluid kills a lot of germs, like
Yeah.
AIDS. It did AIDS. It's done cobalt. Once it's into the system, it takes those things out. So it was more a health benefit to the population when they came. We're very religious, and our folks wanted to have funerals. The first funerals, I think they first didn't embalm, they just bathed the person, dressed them, fixed them up nice, and they went in the homes and they sat all night. That's where wakes came from.
Yeah, yeah.
They sat all night with the person and then took them out to bury them because they couldn't hold them. During Panama Canal,
Mhm.
people began to get wasn't yellow fever, the other thing that was killing folks that mosquitoes were carrying. And the people wanted to be brought home. So somebody invented the embalming machine
Okay.
during that time. And during that, then they were able to take bodies, ship them, and move them from one state to the other or one place into the other.
Without worrying about
You
getting
get,
sick.
yeah, people getting sick and stuff are carrying. Malaria was what it was.
Malaria, yeah.
Yeah. Um, but Granddaddy and those came, and he sent my grandmother off to embalming school. She was already a nurse. He sent her to Renard in New York, where there were two women in her class. So that's the women's population was not one that was doing that kind of work at that time.
Yeah, very true.
She came back, and the two of them worked towards the funeral home and the funeral business, and they got very interested in their community.
Mm-hmm.
So one joined Mount Tabor First Baptist Church that's on Reed Street, the old one.
Mm-hmm.
The other one joined Bethel, which is on Reed Street, Bethel AME Church. And my grandfather started a quartet at Bethel. And the quartet went around when they had revivals
Mm-hmm.
and sang and did stuff to help promote and raise money for the churches and stuff that started. He was very civic minded.
Mm-hmm.
He gave bricks to help pave 11th Street when they first paved it. Anything that was community wide, he was into it. Um, he had hired a lady to come here and bought tables and chairs, typewriters, to start a business school. He died in 1930, and by that time, my grandmother had started the hospital. The hospital started in 1918. She had the people, the doctors at Glendale, called. They had a patient and they didn't have enough room for him. And they asked, could she take care of him? And she did. And they gave her such a glowing recommendation, they sent other patients. And she said, if I can do this for them, why can't I do this for me? And so she opened her hospital. It was not just a birthing center or recovery center. She had a operating room, and she had x-ray room. They had to bring the x-ray in, and they taught my dad how to take x-rays, because anybody who worked for her, anybody who lived around her, they learned how to do something. They had to work. And then my mother married my father, and when she got here, she taught. She had gone to Howard University, majored in English, and she went to Columbia University and had a master's degree. Came back to Florida. She taught at Edward Waters for a year, and then she taught at Florida Memorial. That's where they put in the historical stuff now that they have in St. Augustine. That was a college there, and the people who ran it were Kaya and Blocker. And Miss Blocker would come and visit us when she was there. My dad played tennis and golf and stuff, and Florida Memorial had a indoor tennis court, an outdoor swimming pool. And he and Dr. Long, who did that too, they would go over to play tennis. He met my mom and sweet talked her into marrying him and brought her to Palatka. And then I became a part of the Lawson family. I was born in grandmother's hospital, and Dr. Long delivered me. It's very funny how I got my name. He delivered me, and he said he went next door he went home and he hollered out the window next door and called his neighbor, who was a friend of our family's, to tell him that they had had the baby. My dad wanted a boy really badly. So they thought he was going to be named Theodore, like him. His name was Theodore. My grandma said, nobody. The lady said, well, it's going to be Theodosia, because her name was Theodosia. My grandma said, no, her name's going to be Mary Jane Lawson, just like mine. And that's it.
There was no arguing
There
that.
was no argument. My other grandmother said, well, maybe Mary Elizabeth. No, Mary Jane. So Mary Jane Lawson the second started.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that.
The hospital took care of a lot of people, both white and black. They told her she couldn't house white and black on the same floor. So when I was 3 years old, she moved us out. My dad had a small little bachelor pad he had, but we all had lived in the hospital together before then, upstairs. And she took the upstairs, and it became one that took care of both races. The other thing was that she was very, very happy, and she trained other people. Like you have LPNs now. Back then they didn't, but people would come in and work at the hospital. J&R Nursing Home and Birthing Center stemmed from it. Those two ladies started their careers working there with her. They branched out with Dr. Long as their overseer as a doctor, and started something much needed, because there was nowhere for black people to have for their senior citizens. Everybody who had grandparents back in the day, what happened was you took care. Grandma stayed home and took care of all the kids. until she got too old. And then when she got so old, they took care of her. It was a kind of different kind
Yeah.
of life, but you kept people, most people stayed at home.
Right. And that could be difficult if you had something going on and you needed assistance. So
Yes.
what a blessing to have that service. And so let me just make sure I can understand. You lived on the top floor of the hospital for
When it first kind of started out, that was they told me. I don't remember that. We
mhm,
went to Washington to visit my other grandmother, and when we came back,
mhm,
we moved into the house. We were on the spot in
mhm.
my house on part of it. Part we moved up for a few feet when we built the new one, but the old house was right behind the hospital.
Okay.
And what he did, they didn't have a way to carry folks upstairs,
Mhm.
so they put a elevator in with a pulley, and my daddy became the person and whoever worked there for her
Mhm.
to to take the people from downstairs upstairs
Mm.
to the rooms upstairs where the operating room was. Um, then she, in later years, she got it where she got an electric one in there.
I
Uh,
bet that was a relief.
oh, for her. But the funny thing was, she was very strict. And I said, she was like E.F. Hutton. When
Mhm.
she spoke, every- everybody listened. They'd hear that elevator coming down, and if they weren't busy, everybody got busy.
Scattered.
Yeah. But she wanted you to do excellent. She
Mhm.
wanted to have it so when people were taken care of, they were done properly. And some of the people who worked there left and started other businesses.
Mhm.
With the funeral home, a young man worked for my grandfather,
Mhm.
and he left and he went to Arkansas and started his own black chemical company for embalming
Oh
supplies.
wow.
So it wasn't just a thing. They helped send people to school to get them into. Mother had the connection with Florida Memorial, and they helped get people into school and gave them little scholarships to help them get educated.
That's
She
incredible.
encouraged them to go off. She sent a few off to nursing school.
Mhm.
So it wasn't just a thing of taking care of the sick. They gave jobs to folks. They can't. There were people who came in and cooked,
Mhm.
or cleaned, or did a service that they wouldn't have done. Because
Mhm.
a lot of the work that was done in the early days was working out in the fields,
Mhm.
and times were changing, so they needed to have that change come about.
Right. And so thinking about giving back from paving bricks to now giving back to the education of others and really impacting more communities through their gifts because they go off and they start their own business.
That's right.
And so that must really have instilled in you. I mean, you didn't know any other way than to give back. So tell me about if you were young, you guys moved into the house. Tell me your first memories growing up. Like, where did you go to school?
Oh, that's a little different.
Okay.
Mary McLeod Bethune lived in Palatka
Okay.
years ago. She had thought about starting her business here, and she and my grandmother became good friends.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when she needed to travel sometime and wanted somebody to go with her, she'd get with her, and the two of them would go.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the places they went was to Washington, and Miss Bethune got invited to talk to Eleanor Roosevelt,
Mm.
and my grandmother was with her. She had the opportunity to meet Eleanor Roosevelt. Somebody told me they had lunch with Eleanor Roosevelt on that occasion. I'm not sure about the lunch, but I know that they went and talked
Right.
to her. Um, they traveled to California to recruit people for the school
Mm-hmm.
and raise money for it, because a lot of it Miss Bethune had to get out there and beg, and she
Mm-hmm.
knew how to put it across to raise that kind of money.
Mm-hmm.
But they also worked on starting Council for the Advancement of Negro Women,
Okay.
and it's a national organization now. And we had a chapter here in Palatka that they started up. So what they were doing was really being mindful of what was going on, not only with themselves but others.
Mm-hmm.
I went to elementary school here, and my mother taught at the elementary school for a time, because after I was born and everything, she came in and worked with the funeral home.
Mm-hmm.
But she did other stuff. She went and got a practical nursing de- a degree, a laboratory technology degree. She already had her master's degree, and she was a licensed funeral director. She was financial secretary for the Eastern Star for the state
My
of
goodness.
Florida for 10 years. We talk about my grandmother, but my mother was very quiet,
Mm-hmm.
but very smart, and she worked to help other people. We forget about my dad because he was quiet and laid back. He went to Tuskegee a year, and then he went to Morehouse. And he majored in business. He came back. When my grandfather died, he had married somebody else, and they divorced. He came back home and worked with my grandmother to help her with the hospital and the funeral home. She did the hospital, he did the funeral home.
Mm-hmm.
So he was really the backbone. He made sure that he kept up with funding, and
Mm-hmm.
he even did anesthesia for him when if they needed somebody,
Right.
he found a way. She gave everybody a job. I had them laughing. She bought me a bicycle. Back in the days when I was in elementary school, you didn't have the small bicycles. They just had the regular size.
Uh-huh.
Well, she found a small a bicycle. Dr. Long and Miss Long were my godparents, and he said he'd never had a bicycle. He wanted to buy a bicycle for me. My grandmother looked as she found one because she liked to one up people sometimes. And they bought me a bicycle, but it gave me a job. We live on 9th Street,
Mm-hmm.
and where the city hall is now was the post office.
Mm-hmm.
My job was riding my bicycle to the post office.
Mm-hmm.
Traffic wasn't like it was now. Every day to get the mail.
Mm-hmm.
So I always had a job.
I always had a purpose.
Yes. She started me cooking at 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
She took me out because to survive with the hospital, she had chicken yard.
Mm-hmm.
It had ducks, geese, turkeys, some everything
Mm-hmm.
in that yard because we had a world war going on too that we
Mm-hmm.
had to do. And she got paid sometimes with chickens and eggs and the other stuff, but
Right.
they did whatever they needed to do to keep going. And she taught me how to pick that chicken and clean them
That's a
and cut him
chore.
up and
Mm-hmm.
fry him. From then on, if she needed something like that, I got in that kitchen. I had to stand on the box and got the job done.
Ah,
I like to cook now,
yeah.
but
What's your favorite dish to cook?
I don't know. I do a lot of baking, the sweet stuff,
Oh,
cakes and
my mouth watered.
pies.
Apparently,
Okay.
I need something sweet.
Well,
That.
I'm gonna make you laugh when I have meetings at my house.
Mm-hmm.
When I had special group, I always feed them, so they
Mm-hmm.
laugh. And I tell them if I got a pot on the stove when you come by, I'll feed you.
I like it. I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
just pop over to your house
Okay.
sometime. That's really amazing how, really you think about, I don't think you see it as often, and I'm not sure what it is, but the family affair. I'm huge into things being done as a family. I work with Charlie, and his dad works next door, and his mom works with him, and his niece is interning over there, and then both my husband and I both work for Charlie, and the kids will come up and clean up here sometimes. So I think it's really special when you have generations of family members working to support a goal. But not only did they work, did you guys work, but you got educated in something new. So I think that's really special, and I'd love to see that in communities where they have that rich history and that tie to. I've watched somebody before me work so hard, and I know why it's so important to work hard too.
Oh, she didn't let you get back. You asked me about my education.
Mm-hmm.
My education was a little different than most. That trip she took to California
Mm-hmm.
with Miss Bethune started another realm in my life, another
Okay.
change. My dad had wanted a boy, so he could fix cars. He really wanted to design and build cars,
Mm-hmm.
but there was no school that allowed any of that training for
Mm.
black young men.
Mm-hmm.
So he came back And probably it was a good thing because he came back and took care of business for my grandmother. But she said that she wanted me to be cultured and refined, which I don't know if I am yet, but she wanted a change for me. And so Miss Bethune told her about a school for young ladies. And it was started by the Women's Society of Christian Service of the United Methodist Church. They started it because they said they did not want anybody taking care of their children that was not educated to a point. And so the school was started. The unique thing about it was we had an integrated faculty. So when I went off to school in 1947, I had white and black teachers, which is that
right.
very unique for it. And they were motivators. They pushed us for excellence. They showed us, they even took us to different types of religion. We went one time to look at how Quakers went to church, or
What an experience.
before they were having sit-ins that people talked about. They had us getting on the bus and sitting anywhere on the bus, or going to Hemming Park in Jacksonville and sitting down in the park. Well, we young, we didn't know no better.
Exactly.
We just went along with what they told us. Our Glee Club went to sing at for the First Baptist Church downtown Jacksonville, and they told us we had to come in the back door. Our lady that was our teacher, music, she called and told our principal that they didn't want us to come in the front door. She said if we couldn't come in the front door, then we couldn't sing. So we sang that night there at the church. They gave us a different perspective on life. And one of my teachers that I talk about all the time, she taught us physical ed, but she also taught us science. And in doing so, I think it helped prepare me to sit on that diocese and help make decisions about how the city of Palatka should operate and what we could do to help other people. Because she'd ask us a question, we'd talk about it, answer it. She'd go off to another subject and come back and ask us the same question a different way that we would have to solve it. So she made us problem solving people at an early age.
We need more of that. That's
Yes.
for sure.
They lived, we lived in one building. The classroom and stuff was downstairs, and had another small building that the sixth, seventh, and eighth graders had, but the upper classes were taught in that building.
Now, where was this at?
Jacksonville.
In Jacksonville. Okay,
It
so
was,
you went away for school.
yes, for boarding school for 8 years. And then I went to FAMU, Florida A&M. But I laughed because Miss Bethune and the president of college gave me a full scholarship to Bethune-Cookman. It was before Miss Bethune died. And I told my folks, I don't think I want to go there with her. I figured I would have had a rough time because she would say, Mary Lawson, come here. Come here, Mary Lawson. And that's about how she sounded. So I went off to FAM. My experience at FAM was a good one. I got involved with student activities, and for a while, I was over the arts part of it. Finally majored in arts. And one year, to represent the student union, they sent me to Tuskegee with 3 other people to represent the school. The next year, we went to Duke University, but we couldn't stay on Duke's campus. We had to stay on North Carolina's campus because it wasn't integrated enough. But we went to all the meetings, ate with them, and did everything. But I got an experience of going in different situations and having to take care of them. And it made a definite way of life that I knew that I needed to do. My goal was always to come back and be part of my family business. I got married and I talked the husband into doing it, and the two of us went to embalming school at Worsham College of Mortuary Science in Chicago, and came back. And my mother was sick. Mother had attended Atlanta College of Mortuary Science. She had 2 women in her class. I had 2 women in my class. Now, if you go to the university over in Jacksonville, they have a course, and they tell me one of my sons went there. It's full of women now.
Oh, yeah.
Time has really changed.
For sure. So, but the whole time you went to school, you had the intentions of bringing your education home.
Alpha. Oh,
Yeah.
I told the husband that I had that I'm going home and help my folks with that business. If you want to be with me, then so that kind of helped him in going. And once he got there, he liked doing it. He worked with us until
Yeah.
1980.
I love that. I really, I tell my children this all the time. I was born and raised in Putnam County. My parents both were born and raised in Putnam County. My mom traveled abroad, and she was a military brat, is what they like to call it.
Yeah.
And, she was in the military, so she traveled all over. From California to Germany to the UK. Just all of her experiences help form who she is, and then she came back home and has given her education to the community through teaching and through in the church. And I was able to now for me, I did not leave to go to school. I attended the college here, took a break, and ended up majoring in motherhood, but I worked and played here. And I tell my kids all the time, I want you to leave. And they look at me like, what? And I said, I want you to leave. Go get experience. Then come back. Bring it home. Be able to give back to the community that you grew up in. So I think it's incredible to see we take our youth and retrain them and develop them to find out what they want to do and be the people that they want to be, and then send them off into the world, and then come and bring that back home and help develop this community. And so I think it's amazing that you did that, and you brought your husband in tow with you.
Well, 2 sons.
You got to.
2 sons finally came back too.
Yeah. So how many children did you have?
3.
3. And you were sharing earlier on about doing some sit-ins. When in your life did integration happen, especially in?
It started with me in college at Florida A&M. We when the movement started, we had teachers that we sat in and said, we're not riding the bus. Well, some of those teachers said, fine. If you've ever been to Tallahassee, it's nothing but hills there. So there was no bus transportation. They didn't let freshmen take women have cars on campus. But some of the teachers began to quietly be in the movement. And they give kids rides to town and stuff to do shopping and the stuff. Other stuff, if they participated, some of them lost their jobs because they said that they could not have it going on like that. It was just a different time. It was like that when I went off to embalming school. It was 84 of us, 14 of us were black. But we were in the class together. We sat down for lunch separately and did stuff separately, which to me was, and we used to like to play cards, In college you get where you play whist and stuff. Well, we had one gentleman, white one, that would come and sit and play with us while we having lunch. They told him if he kept playing with us, he would not be accepted by them. So he had to back away from it. Or we went out to eat one time and they talked about the North was better. We sat down and stuff and they served us water and then they broke glasses. And so we said, thank you, but we won't be eating here because you don't know what they're putting into your food and stuff. But it's an experience of change. I watch here, we did not have, there were problems, but there was a Judge Revels. And when the integration stuff started, he decided that he would do something about it. And that's what the thing is. Sometimes it's communication. There aren't problems we can't solve if we communicate with each other.
Well said.
Yes, and then compromise sometimes. And he started a biracial committee. He had he had 6 whites, 6 blacks, and female to male. And when stuff would come up, and I'll tell you another thing. When I got on the commission, when the Klan and stuff would come to town, they brought us all together, and we found out that they were coming into town because they could cause a disturbance, cause cities to spend lots of monies and counties on policing and stuff. And Charlie's daddy, and that's some of us, Sam Taylor, they'd call us all together. They said leaders in the community that they had. And we one time went in the courthouse and stood and watched. And anybody who came up that would start to approach the Klan, we stopped them before, talked to them, and let them know that if they started something, they'd come back every week until they burnt cities out. They did that with a lot of cities. If they did not get response, they wouldn't come back. And so we were lucky that we did stuff together that changed all that.
You outthought them.
Yes.
Brilliant.
We aren't in a perfect community because there are still things that happen. They made me tear down grandmother's hospital. I went to get the roof, a permit to fix the roof, and they told me the building wasn't good enough to do. But the health department was renting it from me at the time.
It's almost oxymoronic, if you will.
Well, I was 20-some years old, about 26 maybe. And you figure whatever government told you.
Right.
But we got there, we tore the building down, and it became a basketball court. I had the community center at my house.
You put it to another purpose.
Yes, and I have young people now that come and say how much they appreciated having that place to go. It's important for us to have things for our young people to do.
Absolutely.
And to spend some time with them and do some things with them. So they always say we had to pay forward, and they told me I lived in a glass house, so I needed to be careful how I carried myself and what I did, because we never knew who was looking at us or what they were doing. And they're right, because young people look at you. They look at how we dress, how we speak, how we approach things. And we should be a beacon for them.
I agree. You know, another thing to piggyback on what you were saying is, you know, the youth is a lot different. I feel like I grew up in a very special time. It was the transition where we did have some computers in the classroom, and we had that old floppy disk, you know, that you put in the original school computers. But most homes, until I was maybe in my late middle, early high school years, didn't have home computers. You know, if they did, they had dial up. I didn't have a cell phone until I was 19, probably 19.
They didn't hardly have cell phones. They were so expensive you couldn't afford them, and they were so big.
Yeah, I remember my grandmother had one in her car, and it was like holding, like, it was literally the size of one of these bricks.
Yeah.
So, but I feel like growing up then, you know, we still had a great sense of community. If I wanted to talk to somebody, you know, we had the home phones, and, you know, only one person could be on it at a time, but we spent time together, face to face. Where now the youth spends a lot of time with the phone or a screen in front of their face. And one of the things that we want to do is encourage how do you teach youth to honor their history, to appreciate it, to be interested in it? And we've come to figure that, you know, they spend a lot of time on the videos, you know, YouTube, Facebook, whatever that might be. So one of the purposes of doing this, where there's a lot of books with history in it, and that's fantastic, but we want to give them something that's relatable to them, you know, watching a video to hear these stories and taking little short pieces of this video and quick hit information. So, you know, I just want to share that is so true about the youth are always looking, and we want to be an example to them. But
that the next step in my life was having the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I made up in my mind then I wasn't as active in other stuff
Mm-hmm.
that I owed it to them to do stuff with them.
Okay.
And so that's what happened. Um, my husband had nieces and nephews that I don't have because I was an only child, of only children. But he had enough for us. He had 6 sisters and brothers,
Oh my
so it was
goodness.
7 of them, and some of them had kids.
Mm-hmm.
And when I married him, the oldest one I think was 8.
Mm-hmm.
And as they got into junior high, I started. I started one time. I picked them up one year and
Mm-hmm.
kept them, but they were supposed to come for a week, 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
They were with me for the summer, 4 of them, 6 of them at first, and then 4 of them. So my house stayed full of
Mm-hmm.
young people, and we did stuff there because I said I had other people's children. I was scared to let them go too many places,
Right.
and we did a lot of simple things. Played cards, they
Mm-hmm.
played ball. They wanted to shoot pool. I saved up money and bought a pool table and put in my living room.
Oh my goodness. Those
Um,
things are big.
yes, it took and I said when I looked up, they got happy and go like this with the pool stick in the ceiling, began to have little holes in it. They wanted to go to the pool. I wasn't able to pay that much money for the pool, so I saved up money for a while.
Mm-hmm.
We went and had a station wagon, pulled the kids, and we got in the station wagon and went and bought a pool. Now you can buy them from the stores around here
Right.
and set it up in my backyard. When I looked around, my backyard was full. My husband said, "You got the neighborhood center in here now." So, but we knew where our kids were,
Right.
and our neighbors. There was the field down the street from us,
Mm-hmm.
where Campbell School used to be.
Mm-hmm.
They go down there. They play football and stuff. Or if somebody wanted to know where the kid was, they call up Miss Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Is so and so at your house? Yeah. Okay, long as they were there and people knew what they were doing.
It's a
So
safety, a place of
yes,
trusted
yeah.
safety.
And so some of those folks turned out really good. Um, then one time went out to the high school after my kids had left with Mr. Aaron Robinson, and we did a Black History program. The people loved it so much. The kids, they asked us when we start a group, and we started a group with them in high school.
Mm-hmm.
We let them put on a show. We took them to places that they would not have been able to go to.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them turned out really well. They got into doing things. One of them is, I think, assistant to Clay County Sheriff now, and his wife is a principal. They just began to go and do good things in the community.
Right.
So, if you plant the seeds
Yes.
and really take an interest. And so I still do stuff with the young people that I feel like will encourage them to do stuff.
I mean, it's so important. I drag my kids to all of the things, whether they want to come or not, and you need to come and see, to be a part of giving back for a greater cause. And some of my favorite moments are them stepping back and watching all these people. And I said, everyone that's here is enjoying the fruits of our labor and building memories with their family or getting an education or whatever that is. So I love that. And I hear this story a lot about from other people. I had the opportunity to speak to Miss Carla Flagg Wright
Yeah,
and her family also in the funeral home
yeah.
business, and her watching her family give back to community. And rarely I see that, there's somebody who is very civic minded. Like Mr. Larry Harvey was here the other day and he was sharing that his family
I
wasn't
know Larry too.
necessary. Yep.
Yeah.
And his family wasn't necessarily giving back to the community in the same way he does. But there's that moment for youth that they're inspired to by something or someone. And I think it's amazing that you providing a place where all the kids could come and just be and be around a good example.
Well, I made a mistake of telling my kids if they had a friend that they couldn't bring home,
Mm-hmm.
that they didn't need that friend. And they asked me, could they have a sleepover one night? And I said, okay. I said, I do bed check all night. So I put the guys in the back. I put one in the family room and the other one's in the living room. So I did check. But the next morning I got up, I didn't realize I had that many kids. They say, how many for breakfast? They said 13.
Oh my goodness.
My kids were into sports and stuff, and I went to all their games. And after the games, there were people who could not pick their kids up. So we'd load them in the car and make sure they got home safely. It did something else for me. As I stepped out to run for public office, I kept running into these young people who were then of voting age, and some of them pillars in the community. And I won that first election. And I said it was because the young people knew me. Because it's hard to get young people to get out to vote unless they feel like they have something to vote
Right. Now, so you came back, you used your education in the community. You were obviously working in the family business. You said you were in your 20s when the hospital was torn down. What did you do? I mean, you were still in the funeral home, obviously. What made you decide to run for office?
for. A fluke.
A fluke?
All my children, they're a year apart, and they went off to college. And I didn't have anything to do, and I read the paper one day, and they said that they were getting ready to give away or close down the auditorium at Jenkins. It was called Neighborhood Center then. And I said, that's a mistake. They shouldn't be doing that because on weekends, that's where the kids went. Our black kids, they went there to dances. They went there sometimes to eat, because they have food giveaways when school was out,
Right.
or just do different activities there. And I said, that's not a thing to do. The building needs some repair and stuff. And I came to city commission meeting and got up and made a pitch for them not to give it away, to keep it. While I was sitting there, they said they had a older lady that they were getting ready to condemn her house. And I'm saying, why? And they couldn't tell me why. I said there hadn't been any lights or water in the house for a while, and they never been inside to see how the house was inside. And I'm saying, isn't something y'all can do to help this lady keep her house? For the simple reason, if she didn't keep the house, she'd lose the property. We get homestead exemption. If you don't live in the house, you can't keep it. And she couldn't afford to do it and pay taxes. At first, Mayor Walker, who was mayor, said they didn't have any way to help. But he went home and his conscience started bothering him in my big mouth, I guess. And he called and asked me, did I know anybody who would go and look up to find out what was the reason she wasn't in the house. Well, I had two friends that were talking to me about running. And I said, hey, I talked to them. They said we'd be happy to do it. They went, they found out that she was ill and that her daughter had taken her to live with her until she got better and she was going to come back. Well, the house did need some repair, and Milwaukee Nurse said first they did not have any money to do it. But when they went in, it was in an area that they could get community development block grant for. And so they decided to do that for her, and they built her a one-bedroom house with central air and heat. And when she got better, she moved back into that house. So then I got talked into running. The two people I sent to do that, they came and said, you need to run for city commission. It's time for us to have a minority on there. And I said, "You're kidding me." They said, "No." I said, "Well, Dr. Hebel's wife ran, and she didn't get in. What you think? They don't want no little black lady." And Butch Bavat with the radio, he cornered me off. He said, "I'm not supposed to be getting into politics, but they need somebody, and you need to run." I said, "I don't know." They kept after me. None of us had ever campaigned for big stuff. We'd gone, pass out stuff to help other people.
Right.
But I talked to my children, and I talked to my staff, because I said, I didn't know they paid you to be on the commission. Of course, they really didn't back then, because the only thing, they paid us $420 a month. I told them that might have paid for my clothes or
Right.
some gas or something, but and they encouraged me to go ahead and do it. I think I ran against 3 or 4 gentlemen. I had started out, there was a seat that was vacant, but Carl Flagg and a Mr. Page, Huey Page, decided they would run. So I said, it's no need of us running against each other. That takes away from some of our base. And so they said, well, the incumbent is in there, you can run against him. And I did. And at first, when they did the count, they told me I was in the runoffs, that I needed 30 some more, 38 more to have won the election. And I said, okay, went home. The next day I was at the school, career day, talking, and Butch Bavat called me, and he says, "You don't won the election." I said, "Get out of here." He said, "Yes, you have." He said they did a recount, and when they did the recount, I had 51% plus 38 more than I needed.
Oh my goodness.
And so I got the job. And I did not know that much about politics, but I made up my mind, if I'm going to do this job, I need to do it.
Right.
And as I sat on the diocese and looked at the gentlemen there that were with me in this endeavor, I decided that I was a person that was going to have to make a difference and change their perception of what women and black women could do
Right.
to make the city of Palaca, where all of us live, the best place we could be.
So you were really changing you were a foundational change of what our commission looked like.
Yeah. Yes.
That's incredible.
The thing that really made me really get in there, they had to have minorities on the city commission, on any government thing, to get federal dollars. That had come down.
Okay.
And when they got me, I was a double whammy for them. I was the double minority. And not only did the city start, but Senator Kirkpatrick put me on Visions 2000. I got on the Affordable Housing Study Commission by somebody. It was one committee after another. And at first I said, I don't think I can do all this. But I was hungry for the knowledge of trying to make a difference and a better place for everybody. Because we are our brother's keeper. I don't care what people say, and none of us do well if some of us don't do well.
I think that's the truth.
Yes.
That we obviously at times do not pay attention to.
Yes, we don't. We forget. And I began to get on these committees. Then they took me to Florida League of Cities, which is the parent organization for cities.
Okay.
They lobby for us. They have, they do a lot of the insurance for cities. They do pension. They got a pension thing for cities. They got a loan thing for cities. I got there, and it wasn't very many women either there. And the guy that was director took a liking to me, and he started having me do stuff. And the first thing, I had been on the community development block grant committee because I had a husband that didn't want to do it, and he told him do it because they go out and look for the areas and approve of areas where you can go in and do stuff. And so they put me on the statewide one that I sat at the table and could help make decisions. And I became an advocate for rural
Amazing.
because rural does not get funded in the same way that big cities do.
Right. Right.
Big cities get a check from Washington and do what you want to. We had to do grants and big and go knock on doors and do stuff.
Which is crazy.
Yes.
That.
But the city of Palaca had started to wake up. They had a guy, Fred Fox, that was a grant writer there, and he was good at it. And with having somebody who would know where stuff was being developed and could, on some of those committees as we got on there were other citizens on them or other business people. So then I began to connect people with the businesses, state people, and federal people, because I got on, they call it FAST, Strike Force, that we went to Washington to talk to Congress people. Because some of them had no idea of what small cities were about.
Right.
I mean, if you lived in a big city, you're into it,
Yeah.
and you got elected and you're doing for your district. Well, we realized we had to do something to open the eyes of them and let them know that the resources that they had needed to be given out.
Allocated, yeah.
And the city began to put in for grants. And we began to put in the things that would help put water lines and sewer lines, and they had just got a grant and we're building a new sewer treatment plant that we needed. That money came from the Department of Agriculture, and I was on a board with some of those folks, and I bugged them so much, 5 of them came. The boss came and brought 4 other people with him. So it was a thing of just getting people to look at us.
Right.
I said, if they look at us, then they know that they need to look at other places,
Right.
our size and smaller. And it's been a wonderful experience. I've been on greenways and trails, blueways, anything that would bring folks into the area. And I think that I made a difference in how the people that sat on the diocese with me thought, and other people, because my first task was, I found out they wanted to sell a train station. And I said, I grew up where we walked home from school and we stopped at the little area by the park. It looked like a little park there to play a little while before we go home. And I knew the train had stopped, and it was important for trains and stuff to still stop here. And I had met Sid Martin, who was state representative. He was over appropriations, and he said he had known my parents and grandparents because we had buried people there, or some of them had been in the hospital even there. And he said, anything I can do to help you, let me know. Well, that's the wrong thing to tell me, because I'm coming back.
Right.
I just got to find out what I need to ask.
Exactly.
And so somebody said, I said, well, how do we get funding? He said, well, you need to talk to somebody in the state or federal government. So I called him, and I said, I need a little help. You said if I needed help. I said, they trying to sell our train station and take it away from us, and we need to keep it. And they want $300,000 for it that we don't have. Could you please help us? Well, he was over appropriations, and they pretty heavy people when they get to cheer stuff like that. And he said, I'll get back to you. And I said, great. And so one morning about 8 o'clock, I get a call, and it's him. He said, I hope I didn't wake you up. I said, you can wake me up anytime. He says, I have talked to the people at train station. I think we have come to a thing where we can get train station for you. That you just got to agree. They asked us to close 2 streets that weren't, so they wouldn't have to put crossings there when the train still came through. They weren't traffic street. and they said we might have to help with the crossing at St. John's and Reed Street because they were made from, and they would let us have the property. Well, the property I didn't realize runs from Reed Street to Madison Street, that corridor right in there.
Oh.
And so he fixed it so that we got the property, and we had to do some work on the train station for 2 years.
Mm.
He had put in appropriations $25,000 to help us renovate because he did bricks and stuff. I told
Yeah.
him work, and we got the train station. A lady named Miss Price, who Marsha Lane was a good friend of, told us about. She had been writing letters to the train people for them to keep Palaca as a train stop. Well, when all that came together, they decided now the train stops here. They won't put us, we begged them to put a ticket office. I think you have to get your tickets online or something. But the train stops and takes passengers on and puts passengers off. So we're one of the few cities that still have a train stopping.
Right.
The other thing, the city bus that we have, Ride Solutions, needed a place to go, and they went into it. And we had a Greyhound bus, I think, back then that had stopped. And so the train station is the transportation hub for the city of Palaca. And after we deemed it that, the county, I think, calls it that because they take people to Gainesville, St. Augustine, and around. I don't know if they go to Jacksonville, but they take them to doctor's appointments and the other things that they need
That's
to
so
do.
necessary.
Yes, it is.
Oh my gosh.
And before then, before Ride Solutions, we didn't have a bus. We had I think two white people that did taxis and two black people that had taxi places. And that's the way. If Uncle Bubba couldn't take you to the doctor, to the store, you had to
Right.
walk.
And having stuff like that, one of the things that we were talking about with the Bartram
Trail.
was the Bartram Trail is that when they do the frolic, there are children who come from Crescent City who've never crossed over the bridge. And that to me is just mind blowing. So if you think if they haven't crossed over the bridge, if they need transportation for some purpose out further than that, it may be a situation where if it weren't for Ride Solution, they wouldn't have
it.
that. So
Well, the other thing is the riverboats. That's my baby too.
yeah, you got a lot, just like children at your house after school. You got a lot of babies that you care about.
Well, I I found by going to Washington and making friends with Congresswoman Corinne Brown, she got us. I came up looking for a grant for enterprise and to help develop whatever we needed to do to get better jobs and a better way for folks to live so people could own their own homes and stuff, because I think that's important.
Right.
And I talked to her, and I went up one time, and they had a grant, and Clinton was president then, and they had a grant that you had to get to do a 5-year plan of where you thought your city would be to put in for it. And I came back, I was looking for an empowerment zone grant, an enterprise zone grant, but this was an empowerment zone grant. And I told my city manager, and he says, well, I don't think Fred Fox got time to do that for you. He's our grant writer. I said, but why can't we do it for ourselves?
Right.
And so when I took it back to the city commission, they came up and said, sure, that's the thing we should do. And so the community came together, and we wrote a 500-page grant that looked at transportation, housing, and economic development. And I asked them, could I chair economic development? And they told me, sure. But then they began to put co-chairs with us. They weren't quite thinking that maybe, we could do that. I could do that. And he came to one meeting and he said, I'm going to be the devil's advocate. Well, by the time he got through with the group we had, he didn't come back anymore.
Okay.
And we wrote the grant. We didn't get the $40 million because it went to the vice president's state that year. But what happened to us was we got points for 10 years, 25 points for every federal grant we put in for. So by the time it was over, we probably got a lot more. I never followed up to see how much money we got. But we got a good view of what the city needed and where we needed to go.
And valuable information and time in front of people. If you think about economic development or you think about this community, you have seen so much in your time here. I got to know, as a community member note, what are some things that are fond memories of yours? Because obviously you went away to school for a little while, but what are some things that are things that you would do or enjoy?
Well, you know what? The thing that has meant a lot to me is I made a lot of good friends.
Mm-hmm.
And it crossed the spectrum of all kinds of friends. I was going to tell you that I came up with the idea for the riverboat.
Mm-hmm.
The
the
two that we have down there.
Mm-hmm.
And the chamber laughed at me. They called it my folly. So I went to commission, and they said that they didn't see how they could do it.
Mm-hmm.
I never fussed with anybody. When all my life they've been saying you can't do this. You're too young. You're too old. You're too short. You're too female. You're too something. I went out and started a nonprofit, and people that lived in the area that had retired came to my aid. It took us 10 years to find a grant because I worried everybody in the state to help me find one.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, my roommate from college, who had a position in the Department of Transportation in Broward County, found me the grant. And I brought it back, passed it on to the city, and then they went for it. And it took them about another 10 years to get the boats here. But when you talked about the kids coming with Bartram Trail, they have taken 200 kids out in a boat.
I know.
That never would have gone out.
Exactly.
And they told me since 2015, when they got the first boat, that they have taken 5,000 kids that would never have gotten on the river. That makes me very happy.
Makes it all worth it, all that work.
Yeah.
That I had no idea that I knew about the 200 kids, but the statistics on that, again, who would have never had that opportunity.
Well, Sam Carnos and Campbell, they are all good friends because I was on the Greenways and Trails First Committee.
Yep.
And Nancy Harris and I were on Blueway stuff. And it was all to help make Palaca be the place it could be. I think that things as I see them and people getting to do things and just seeing Palaca do better makes me very happy. And it used to be when I went places, they said, "Where is Palaca?"
Right.
We started getting so much grant money one time. They changed how they give out the grant money. I think they can get $750,000 per grant now, and they have to finish them in 2 years. Before, they just gave this chunk of money to whoever need. But the need was really great.
Right.
And people didn't know that they needed to do. And Congressman Micah, he came in and Nancy Harris told him what we wanted to do with the boats. And they help us get $1,019,000, and Corinne helped us get another $300,000, and that's how those boats got there. And it's about making friends and connections. And I've been lucky enough that with Congressman Micah, well, first Corinne, when I went up, she got to be a really good friend, and anything we wanted, she put me in touch with it. And I started going to Washington every 2 years, And so we would have another connection. Bill Nelson became a friend to us, and he sent people here to look at what we needed. And that's what it's all about.
That's huge.
Connecting the dots. So I got a one-on-one with Lawton Childs, and I had a classmate that worked for Bob Graham, and that's how it kind of got me started. He put my name on a list, so I got invited, and so how politics began to work, and be able to make those connections with connections that we did not have,
Right.
that might not have thought about us if there was not somebody there asking.
Think about all the cities. I mean, just in Florida, how many cities there are. And then to think about across the United States and how special that truly is that people are paying attention
To
to
a little,
to
yes,
little old Palaca.
yeah.
And Palaca again has so much rich history in Putnam County. And so being able to do that, and you have been the mouthpiece, the Miss Palaca, going out there and getting things done for us.
Well, I think that my parents did not realize, and grandmother, that they were putting me in a position to learn how to dress properly. Those old ladies, back in those days, you had to wear gloves and stuff everywhere, and heels, and look the part. And the school had a large dining room, and they would let people come in and have a banquet. So I learned what fork went where and what spoon went there, and so all of my life kind of went into making me the person that I was. And my mother said I spoke perfect English until I went to school. So they also at my school had to have somebody who they took around with them my senior and junior year that talked about the school. And I got designated for those 2 years doing that with our glee club. When our glee club would go to a church that was, donating to us, then I had to get up and talk about the life at our school. So I learned how to get up in front of people.
Right.
It's been a very interesting life. Now, my family, when you step off to do a lot of this stuff, you don't have a lot of time with family. Mine was gone a while, and I found a friend to travel with me for a while. When she passed away, my children were starting to be near and come back. And so they traveled with me and got the experience of meeting and doing some of the things and seeing that and giving us a broader scope to help more people.
Right.
And I think that helped me a lot. The Florida League of Cities really did too, because I chaired some committees there that moved me, and I was on the board of directors and the executive board on there for a long time. That got to meet all kinds of people, from Congress people to the people that were the department heads and stuff, that would return calls when you sent them and give a response. There was a Department of Community Affairs that Scott changed and made it onto something else, but it was the one that did CDBG and all that stuff. And I bugged one of the guys that was over it to come to Palaca. He flew in at 10 o'clock one day and stayed till 3 for us to take him on a tour. And the other thing I think I had fun doing, and they used to laugh at me about stuff I come up with sometimes, is anytime I found anybody who had dollars that wanted to invest in Palaca, or we had any legislative or Congress people come in, I put them in my car and put my child restraining seats on and took them on a tour of all the wonderful things that the city had been doing with the dollars they got. And when I got them back to the place where we needed money, I had them sitting there, and then I gave them the spiels about, you see how good we been? We need some more.
Brilliant.
It worked, and when Mayor Terrell Hill, they laughed at me for doing that before, but when Terrell and those came in, they saw the value of it, and he started getting the bus and putting all of us on the bus to hit all of them with the stuff
Mm-hmm.
that we needed so that they saw that the commission
Yeah.
was there and ready to do what we needed to do to get it.
I think
So
that's valuable. What do you think made you so passionate about this community,
family.
your family?
And my grandmother knows they didn't have Medicare, Medicaid, or health insurance. I
Mm-hmm.
never knew them to turn down a person.
Mm-hmm.
If we buried people, if my family had gotten paid for everybody they buried that could not really afford it,
Mm-hmm.
then you'd have a lot of people that hadn't been buried.
Mm.
And people, when you're a funeral director, they come to you um, with legal problems, all kinds of
Mm-hmm.
problems and things. You just can't. Well, I, I had a friend that come to me and say, "You think I need to take this medicine?" I said, "Do you realize I am not a doctor? I'm an undertaker." So it was just we were there. We did the notary stuff. My mother was very smart,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody came to her that she did not help
Mm-hmm.
um, with filling out papers or writing letters or helping them do anything. And I've never known us to do that. Sometimes I've done it with my kids, and
Mm-hmm.
they aren't kids anymore. They're adults. They do some of it, and I tell the one that's there now, you need to get paid for something,
Mm-hmm.
like you used to tell me.
Right.
But they, I look up and Teddy going to cut somebody's yard, get a riding mower, or connect up with somebody, or somebody comes with information they need,
Mm-hmm.
and they
Yeah.
get it done.
I love networking. It's one of my favorite things. Especially having these conversations, hearing stories, and speaking of the Blueways and Trails, we're talking about ways to bring the history and art out of that trail. And he was Craig McLean was talking about putting I think one of the groups had art on the trail. And I thought, well, the Gathering Artist of Putnam's together. Why don't they put some art on the
Well,
trail?
look,
Just connecting people.
look at all the murals and stuff we have.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see us make Palaca a walking trail now for
Mm-hmm.
history.
Mm-hmm.
The Belton family
Mm-hmm.
needs to have something that showed how much they gave to this town. Sometimes when you die, people forget how did we how did we manage to get this far?
Right.
We got this far by faith.
Mm-hmm.
And they did a lot of stuff for folks that they never got paid or any credit for. And sometimes we need to say thank you
Mm-hmm.
and put something, and then we need to be an inspiration to the younger people
Yes. Yes.
that now you see them. I want to go in business. You know where I can get a grant? No. But when my grandparents came here, women could not borrow money from banks or anywhere. There was nowhere. They didn't. I don't think back in those days that they could own land. It just
Mm.
happened. She had my granddaddy. He stuck her name and my dad's name on everything. But they couldn't buy cars. They couldn't do anything
Mm.
except the way they worked to save the money.
Right.
And the people at J&R Nursing Home, they
Mm-hmm.
took in people and stuff, and they sacrificed to make sure somebody else had a better life.
Right.
And that's what life is. That's what life is about. I
Absolutely.
believe if I take care of people, God will take care of me.
I think that's a great way of thinking, and it's fulfilling to be able to do that. And yeah, just think about how you waited 20 years for those boats, and there they are doing something for the children, much like you had your pool table and your swimming pool at the house. You're giving back to these children in
Oh, don't
ways.
forget the basketball goal. We put
Okay.
that basketball goal where we left the floor
Mm-hmm.
of the hospital there,
Mm-hmm.
and I put a basketball goal up, and the neighborhood kids came from around and played right there. Nobody got hurt or anything. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
just had a good time. My my son played basketball. Teddy, the one that's there now with the funeral home,
Mm-hmm.
he played basketball in high school all
Mm-hmm.
4 years. And when he came back, he started with the city's kids in basketball, And a lot of times he took on the kids that nobody else wanted.
Mm-hmm.
He did that up until a few years ago. But it's a thing of thinking about other people.
Right.
I say I look at my house and be full. They be sitting in there waiting on him to go beg up enough cars to take them to somewhere like Bunny Hill for a tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Yeah.
and he didn't only do that. He tutored them in math and science.
Mm.
And some of them went on to play professional ball. And he taught some of them how to play chess. So it's a thing of taking people along with you. When I travel, most of the time, I try to take somebody else along with me
Right.
so that they could get the benefit. Or if I couldn't go, they'd know where to go to do certain things.
Yeah. So just really making community what
Yep.
it is.
Yep.
Well, that I think that that's incredible of all the lives that you've touched and all the things that your family really has done, and then pass that on to you. It's a beautiful memorial every time you do something of what you had instilled in you, and now are instilling in the youth. Um, Yeah, I hear a lot of people share their memories of like the Howl movie theater and taking the RC Cola lids down there to get things to get into the movies, and your story of giving back to the youth. And I really do think it's about finding something for the youth to do, a reason for them to be committed to something, to learn. I know that you have so much more history in your mind and so many more stories to tell. But I would love, if you're interested in it, I know that you're working on a history project right now. If I could be a part of that, we could make it a whole series with what you're doing. But I do want to say thank you for telling me your story and telling me how you got to where you're at. And again, the memorial's coming up for the hospital, correct?
Yes.
Excellent. You want to tell me a little bit about that?
Well, the city voted to put a kiosk up, historical kiosk, up on the corner where the hospital was
Mm-hmm.
to honor our family. I thought it was first my grandmother. When I saw the kiosk, they included my grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing they left my parents out, but
Mm-hmm.
it's still in the writings of the kiosk. It will be on Saturday at 1 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
We're on the corner of 9th and St. John's, but we're going to have the ceremony next door at St. Mary's Episcopal Church.
Okay.
And they're going to have St. Mary's open, and Mr. Alexander will be there to talk about the history of it. Because I have people stopping and saying, is that church? I want to see the inside of that church. Well, I don't have a key. Okay. But that is the church I attend. And the other thing is, well, I have a group. We're calling ourselves Newtown, Friends of Newtown Historians. And we're starting up. We've had a arts and crafts festival about 2 years ago, and it went well. And we were supposed to be doing it again, but all of us senior citizens, and we said we'll get on it tomorrow. But we decided to incorporate it in with what we are doing on Saturday. So we put an hour for our dedication, whatever. Probably won't take that long. But from 2 to about 4, if a senior citizen has arts and crafts they want to bring and put out and have and ask people to come and look to see if it's something they want to purchase, that the senior can keep their monies. We're providing the space and an opportunity for them to do it. And we'll set up a table for them on the grounds and people can walk up. It'll be sitting in the back of the tent, on the back of the church grounds, because we figured if people come to see the Lawson thing, some of them would stop and might find something they would like.
Yeah, I think that's great. Well, I'll be sure to, share any information that we've talked about so other people can go out and explore the history. But I just want to thank you for all the hard work that you've put in. And, I appreciate that your family has instilled that in you and you have instilled that in your children. I look forward to the history that's being
You'll be
captured.
meeting my children because I think all of them are coming.
I'm excited.
But listen, it wasn't hard. Well, it was hard work, but it was an act of love. And when you do that, then it doesn't become a burden. It becomes a joy, a pleasure to you to do it.
But it surely was a pleasure for me, and I just want to thank you. And I do look forward to what else we can capture together and with the Friends of Newtown. Thankful that I get to be a piece of that. So
Okay.
I hope you enjoyed this interview. I surely did. And stay tuned for what's to come for the Friends of Newtown. Until the next episode, we'll see you later. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.